A woman from Northern Ireland denied access to her late partner's pension because they were not married has been told she is entitled to the payments. Denise Brewster's partner, Lenny McMullen, died suddenly in 2009, just 2 days after the couple were engaged. She'd been denied payments from his pension because they didn't fill in an extra form required for unmarried couples. But today, the Supreme Court ruled that this was discriminatory and that Ms Brewster should receive the payments. We were joined by Harini Iyengar, a barrister who specialises in discrimination and employment law at 11 KBW law firm. Harini, thank you very much for being with us. What is the significance of this particular ruling? I mean, from whence does the Supreme Court decide that what has happened in the past, thousands of unmarried people not getting access to pensions, may well be turned on its head?
Well, Ms Brewster's been kept out of her partner's pension since he died about 8 years ago. It's going to have big implications for people in the same situation who are in Northern Ireland. The law was changed in England and Wales around 2014. And then from a wider legal perspective, it's got implications about this type of government scheme, which makes provision for pensions or other kind of benefits. And I think those operating those schemes now will be looking at this decision and asking themselves, are there parts of our scheme that treat unmarried couples differently from married couples or civil partners? I mean, it's something that you would have assumed that firms and public institutions would have considered a lot more carefully, given just how many of us are living in relationships of this type these days. Absolutely. I think the case says that 1 in 6 couples are unmarried couples living together, and so not married, not in a civil partnership. And actually, the regulations that were the whole focus of this judgment in the Supreme Court were put into force with the aim of making things equal for cohabiting couples and married and civil partners. It was just this requirement that there should be a nomination form sent in that led to Ms Brewster not getting her survivor's pension. And this was based around Article 14 of the ECHR. One wonders whether or not, given that there are some movements in terms of a relationship with the European Court of Justice, with the European Union, this will continue. Yeah, that's very interesting. So under Article 14, there are various kinds of discrimination that are outlawed, and marital status, so being a cohabitee rather than a wife or a civil partner, is what this distinction was based on. And that's outlawed under Article 14, discrimination on the basis of marital status. And you're quite right, if we were ever to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, you wouldn't be able to succeed in this type of case. But actually, we just don't know what's going to happen in regard to that. I've seen today, just on the way here actually, that the Minister for Brexit has responded to a written question that was about Article 3 to do with prohibition on torture. And he said in response to that the government has no plans to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. But I don't think anyone's asked the government specifically about Article 14 or about Article 1, Protocol 1, which is the right to enjoy your possessions peacefully, which was also in play here because Mr McMullen had been paying into his pension scheme for 15 years and he'd been living with Ms Brewster for 10 years, and it was their right to his property and his pension that was in question. Harini, I rather suspect, given the outcome of the case at the Supreme Court, people will now be asking the government exactly those questions. But given the distress, given the financial concerns of taking a case like this all the way to the Supreme Court, what is the situation now for couples in this position, for someone who's been bereaved but has been cohabiting in Northern Ireland? Do they then have to take this case all the way to the Supreme Court to ensure that they get what they're owed from the pension? No, I mean, I imagine what would happen is that maybe they haven't yet had a decision, and I think those making the decisions in Northern Ireland now will be obviously looking at this judgment and making their decision in the light of the guidance from the Supreme Court. If people have had a decision, then they need to take advice about how to go back to the decision maker and say, look, have you seen the decision of the Supreme Court? And can I please ask you to look again at it? We'll keep our fingers crossed. It's certainly a judgment that plenty of people are discussing today. Harini Iyengar, thanks very much for being with us on Sky News. Thank you.